Welcome to Heritage University Presents Busting the Myths of Community Association Management. Hello, friends. My name is Melissa Rogers, and I'm the Vice President of Business Development for Heritage Property Management. And I am seated quite next to and so excited to have joining us our Director of Transitional Services, Amarie Warren. For those of you, if this is your first time, we are so glad that you're here. And if you've had the opportunity to join us in classes past, you might notice Miss Amarie is joining us again from our previously recorded Ask Me Anythings from last year. So tonight, we have the fun privilege. It's going to be more like a conversation to the best of our ability. But tonight, we are going to be addressing some of the myths, if I can say that, and misconceptions that I think a lot of people take into decision making, take into whether or not they're even going to serve as a volunteer within their community, or heaven forbid, even deter them from, potentially buying a piece of property that has covenant restrictions. So our goal tonight is to empower all of you as usual. And we hope that you learn a lot. And we certainly want this to be as discussion oriented as possible. So as we kind of go through the slides tonight, feel free to drop questions in the Q&A section, which should be in the upper right-hand corner of your screen. And feel free to drop in any experiences that you might have. Keep in mind, we're not going to be talking about any community association specific items. We're not going to be talking about specific examples or actual events that, specifically take place. This is going to come as more of our experience.
General high level.
I would say so.
Industry wide.
And so I've been doing this for about 15 years. You've been doing this for how long?
I have been doing association management specifically for about 8 years. And I've been doing other kinds of expanded property management, real estate management for 15 years.
Okay. So I have a little bit of an easier time saying it than she does, but Amarie and I work together quite often. If you are a Heritage partner, you may have interacted with us at some form or fashion in your experience and your partnership with us. But we work alongside partners as we bring on associations to our company. And so who better than to kind of traverse the myths of what we see, or the common conversations that you and I have over and over and over again with people. And we want this to just really be something that you can take and share. It might be a little tongue in cheek for some of you. It might be a little bit funny from time to time. We want to have this be as informal as possible because we think that some of these are kind of funny. And we had some fun putting this whole class together. So
it's funny because it's true.
I guess, maybe. All right. So on the next slide, we are going to learn really what this class is going to cover in total. And so we kind of thought that the best way to kind of go through this class would be to kind of explain to you from A to Z. And so what we're going to do is we're going to kind of briefly touch base on, why does a community association exist? Like, why is this even in a profession or an industry? Like, why is this even a real thing? And then we're going to talk about the different categories of misconception. So just in general, overall, what are the community association misconceptions? Then we're going to delve into what are the more poignant board member misconceptions.
The management misconceptions.
We don't get any misconceptions.
No, people understand our role like
100%.
Super clear. Clear as mud.
Clear as mud. And then my personal favorite, the popular homeowner misconceptions, which I definitely think are going to start a spark of conversation as we head into our Q&A. So on the next slide, we're going to go ahead and get started with kind of the timeline, if you will, of why community associations exist. Again, as we kind of talked about, in addition to what we offer as a management professional company, we are also our trade affiliate, if you will, our educational trade affiliate is Community Associations Institute, or CAI, for those of you who are aware. And CAI is an international entity that does have state and different national chapters. So it's a very comprehensive
association. I mean, it's an association.
It really is its own entity. So we're going to talk a little bit, just very briefly on this slide, which is the most boring out of this entire class. But obviously understand that the reason why we're having this conversation is because community associations are domestic not-for-profits, and they have recorded land deed restrictions with the clerk of court for their county or the superior court of their county. And so with that, when you buy a piece of land that has covenants on it or land restrictions, this is kind of where this novel idea of being able to have some kind of planned housing environment. So this is where we see the Urban Land Institute get involved. Now, clearly, this was really more geared towards cities and condominiums,
accommodating large people in small spaces.
Correct.
And shared,
more vertically, if you will, than horizontally.
But having shared interest and having to come together to maintain a shared
correct
interest.
And then that kind of caught like wildfire. That's where we also then started to see where the local municipalities and the communities and the cities were actually creating zoning requirements that actually married those land restrictions and those covenants and those things. That's why sometimes you might be in an association right now that in order for you to take down a tree, you also need to get arborist approval from your local municipality. This is where you start to see that intertwining attempt to take place. There is a lot of dysfunction with, matching up all of those things, but this is generally where this kind of started.
But
Go
it's
ahead.
Definitely evolved into a lot of, where it started as primarily condominiums and small spaces in the cities and urban areas. Mm-hmm. It's definitely sprawled out into the suburbs and even now into the more rural and just all development. A lot of municipalities are requiring community associations for a development. And in doing that, they're creating opportunities for the associations and the people benefiting from certain infrastructures to carry the cost of maintaining it.
And so right now, kind of what this has evolved into is like Atlantic Station is probably the best thing. That's the live, work, play area. We're starting to see a lot of that. That's masterful, that's master planned association management. This is oftentimes where we see a master and sub-association sometimes. But this is really, there's so many different versions, and you'd be surprised how certain parcels are actually deeded with covenants. So, we always see something new. Just when we think we've seen it all, we always see something new, which is kind of cool because we like sleuthing, but that's just us. So obviously in the early 60s, this becomes a real thing. And now we're having all of these corporations that need boards of directors and need volunteers. And these are volunteers that serve short term, as you all know. Some of you are lifers, but for the most part, it's intended for you to be able to cycle yourself off the board appropriately after you've spent your time. And so establishing this expertise and being able to have a home base and educational resources. For those of you that are attending tonight, oh my gosh, my heart is so happy because you're really investing in your community's success. You're educating yourself. You are sharing with the community that you take this seriously. So establishing expertise is necessary, and this was done by CAI. And then this is where kind of we start to show up, where a lot of states, the state of Georgia being a little different, a lot of states get their main licensure through CAI, by way of either getting their CMCA, their AMS, or their PCAM. You might even see an LCAM for the large scale managers out there, especially for other large states like Florida and Texas and California, just that have massive associations that are way more than 28 community members. So this is kind of the why behind, and as you can see, Amarie, we're talking about this. This is only like a 60-year thing. This is a relatively new profession and a relatively new industry when you really think about it. Okay.
Single family home neighborhoods have really only been seeing associations, mandatory membership associations from the inception since the late 90s, really mid to late 90s,
Yep.
is when you really start to see those numbers pick up. While there are associations that were in existence before that, they were not mandatory, or they have they weren't associations at all other than just neighbors and having hot dogs on the 4th of July. And
remember when people used to be neighborly?
Neighbors. And now they've organized themselves into a mandatory association.
And it's interesting because voluntary associations still exist. And so if you're watching this and you're like, I have no idea what you ladies are even talking about, don't worry, we've got a class for you. You watch this on replay through YouTube, and we'll get you covered with the glossary of terms and so forth, especially if you're a brand new board member. But we really want to make sure that you have the good foundation. On the next slide, we're going to start talking about the common community association management. So now we kind of understand why. And so I would say that these are probably the top. I want to, honestly, anybody can chime in with this. I can assure you when I tell you this, there are more versions and more misconceptions than anything that we're going to talk about tonight. But what we have put together are really the most common ones that we kind of communicate the most with. So my first one, or the first one, which is really my favorite one, well, the first and the fourth one is my favorite, but the community association controls everything. And I'm choosing to say community association instead of board specifically here. But while it may feel that way, while yes, they have the responsibility to make sure that you are keeping the windows white facing out to the street and you don't have a Care Bear sheet as your
you can't have unicorns at the end of your driveway.
I mean, I like that. And I actually, if you get that approved by your association, so what Amarie is not telling you is she's the board president of her community. I don't know why she does that to herself, but
for punishment.
But she also has really great knowledge from just her point of view of how she serves her community equally. But I mean, I guess if that is an approved structure by your association standards, I say yes to those unicorns.
Absolutely. Your association actually gets to set the tone, and it's, I say your association, it's actually your governing documents. The governing documents actually lay out the prohibited activities, and they're kind of the framework for your community-wide.
They 100% are the framework.
Well, what actually gets put into play factors into it too. So some things aren't spelled out in your documents. You have to look around your neighborhood and see what the community-wide standard is.
Yeah.
Occasionally, developers do things in their neighborhood that aren't reflected at all in the documents, but you can look around and see that everybody has a white picket fence, and therefore you cannot put up your chain link fence because it is not within the community standard.
That is not them trying to be disrespectful in your choice. It might fit your budget better to have that chain link fence, but unfortunately, this is where just that conversation of communication really comes into. So,
but the community, governing documents navigate set the framework for the community.
The rights and responsibilities. So it's even. It's even. You get benefit, even though in this next one, most people will think that there's, listen, I live in a neighborhood where I don't have a pool. I don't even have a front entrance gate. I don't know what I pay my assessments for. They sure as heck aren't going towards anything. I don't even know why we even have to have a board of directors.
I hear what you're saying. There are some unseen benefits.
Oh,
they're the
Unsexy.
amenities. And that is, if you have a community that has private roads, you have to pay for those roads.
Those are very expensive.
They're very
sadly.
expensive. You have to pay the taxes on any common area property. You have an interest because you're part of that association
Yes.
in that common area. So you have to pay for it. You have to pay to maintain it. You got to pay to insure it because, God forbid somebody trip and fall, and then you're on the hook for a lawsuit because you have an invested interest in that property. And also, there is a benefit in your neighbors not being able to run amok and do whatever they want to do with their property. You've got some restrictions as to what that property can be used for and what can and can't be done on it. It's not a blanket.
Sure.
You have to get approval for everything, but it is. You have some idea of what your neighbor is going to be doing with their property.
And that is truly at the end of the day, whether you have the most beautiful pool, whether you have a perfect view, whatever that might be for your amenity, the real value of living in a covenant restricted community is to have some type of uniformity that's to the major benefit of not only your personal experience, but also hopefully the most important and expensive asset that you'll ever own. And we want that to continue to have equity. And it is, it's shown in records that covenant restricted communities have higher and better resale value, can attract and have the ability to have more of that neighborly experience. Maybe, hey, it's the first time you've ever lived in a community association before and you have no idea what you're supposed to be doing. And you pay that bill late for the first time and then you get an education. We hope that is the extent of which that happens, but we assure you, even though you may not tangibly see the financial benefit of living within a community association possibly every day, hopefully you're looking at that when you take a look at the county land records and you see the valuation of your home. Okay, so go ahead.
And to that point, you as a homeowner do have input in your community association, which leaves us to the next one, which is residents and owners have no say.
My hands are tied. I can't do anything
in their direction of their neighborhood.
I don't want to be on the board. Why would I want to be on the board? That's your responsibility. That is not mine.
In so many ways. But owners and residents in the communities and the boards have lots of opportunity to give input. We always recommend that boards talk to your neighbors, and because your neighborhood is going to move in the direction of the majority of owners. Correct. I mean, it's a associations are set up to be a representative democracy. We have elections. We don't vote on every item, but you do have a say in who is on the board. You yourself can serve on the board, and then you have a little bit more input and knowledge about what's going on.
Correct. Having that executive knowledge, I think actually is really important. So you should really try to
see how the sausage is made.
But you should, though. I mean, I'll put it to you like this. If you plan on living in a community that has covenants for a long period of time, we do recommend that you try serving. And you don't have to serve on the board to volunteer or to add value to your community. I, very much so, unlike Amarie, choose willfully not to serve on my board of directors because this is what I do every day. And I tell my boards that I can be of value to them if they need a resource, or as a management professional, not giving any specific advice, I'm always a liaison that they can reach out to for assistance. So I always try to make myself available, but that doesn't mean that I have to serve, but I will certainly serve in the best interest of all.
There's an opportunity for committees in associations. And you can take what you're interested in, the things that you're
passionate about.
You want to see in your neighborhood.
Those Leland cypresses.
Take it on as a committee.
Crepe murder
committee. I like it. Get rid of them. Crepe myrtles are out.
No, don't you dare get rid of those crepe myrtles. They're beautiful.
If you want to see, or if your association at your meeting believes that your declaration is not reflective of the direction of your association, you have the opportunity to have an amendment drafted, decide what you want changed as a community, and draft that into an amendment, have it voted on by the community, and then your governing documents are changed not only for your current ownership, but then for the ownership moving forward. I understand, and this is the biggest thing that I hear a lot of is that well, all of our neighbors are great. We're all friends. Like we don't need to get into violations. We don't need to have an amendment. We can just, yes, your neighbors are great. They're great, but you have no idea who's moving in, who's going to decide that they're moving out, and who they sell to. So always put it in. Always put it in.
I just want to let you know, this seems like a lot of work. Like just what you just explained seems like that seems a little much for just my little neighborhood.
It's not
12 homes.
It's not easy. It's not a quick, well, it can be a quick process. If
Depends.
everybody in the neighborhood is in agreement, then absolutely it's a quick, it can be really easy to do.
Right.
Sometimes it's
even if that agreement is apathy. That's still agreement. That's still agreement.
But if everybody's in agreement, if you've got some differing opinions, then you have to work them out.
And we want there to be differing opinions. If you've joined us in classes before, we don't want you to all think the same way. There needs to be that balance. So my next one is probably my most favorite one, and we're actually going to talk about this in a different perspective, but all community associations are created the same. That could not be further from the truth if you try.
Not. Thankfully,
I agree with that.
I'm going to say thankfully because I live in a community association, and the scope of what your association provides, for starters, is different.
Huge.
Every association.
The maintenance responsibility might be different. What you have access to, maybe you're an association that has,
your amenities,
or easements that are shared amenities for another community. There's lots of different things. And so oftentimes, especially with what I do, people will reach out, and we love referrals. I mean, I think that that's the best way that it tells us that we're doing a good job, but they're like, oh my gosh, I want to look like this community right here. We know that they've been with you for so long. We want that for you too. But there's a couple of things that we have to look at.
Do you know how much they pay in HOA dues?
Oh my God.
That's the biggest. If you want to pay for it, you too can look like that. You can look like that too, but it's going to cost you, because that is the biggest thing that is not the same across the board.
100%.
And how much you pay for your HOA dues is definitely going to affect the services and the level of aesthetics that your association can put into your community.
And I will say this on that, and I'm glad that you brought that up. Judging a book by the visual aesthetic of the association is not always the best way to determine whether or not an association or a community or a board or a homeowners is happy, thriving, and or working together.
Yeah, Karen may be coming through with her chainsaw really hardcore, making sure that there are no violating mailboxes in that neighborhood. There's a
totalitarian Tammy is coming out.
Totalitarian Tammy is making sure nobody steps out of line. Also, that means nobody walks outside.
Right, so that is true.
There's a give and take.
That's true.
There's a give and take.
So just be mindful of that when you hear that in conversation. Just put that flag up. Oh, actually, I think they're all different. And declarations are like snowflakes. None two are the same. Okay, so the last one on this slide is rules never change, or they are way too strict. Like, why would I even buy here? Because I can't do anything anyway. Well, that's not true.
Well, it might be true.
I know that is true.
It depends on the governing documents, but
I really hate that that's your answer for everything, Amarie.
It really is. It really is. It's my catch-all. It's my pass all the tests.
It's the truth, though.
It's the truth. But they can change, like we said earlier. You can, if your association is moving in a different direction and you have the collective buy-in of the majority of the association,
you might have to follow the amendment process.
You got to follow the amendment process. If you don't have one, then it could be a little bit harder, because you might have to get everybody, or you would follow the Georgia Nonprofit Code for amendments. So you can change it to match the direction that your association is headed in. Or to make your association stronger for different reasons by joining the POA, adding leasing caps, changing the leasing cap or the leasing rules. Sometimes that is going to help.
We want things. your covenants and your declaration and your bylaws are intended to grow and adapt with the community. So I kind of use this as an example. You remember back when in like the architectural world a couple of years ago, the dark trim on houses came back in and everybody freaked out because there were a lot of declarations out there that said white trim that has to match the garage, that has to match the awning, that has to match the front door. And then there was this whole shift in culture of what was cute. And then people started painting brick. And that was a big thing too, because then
that's a big thing.
We had some people that honestly had covenant restrictions against that. So, you know,
or just a community-wide standard.
Oh, okay, there we go. So from that, well, don't even get me started on the difference between community-wide standard and an initial use restriction, because those two can actually be used against one another. But that's for a different class on a different day, friends. I was gonna say we can get in the weeds. Okay, so on the next slide, we're gonna talk about those common misconceptions that I know most of you have about board members. And I gotta tell you already, my friends that are starting to hit up the chat, thank you so much, because you are so in line with exactly what we were talking about. Somebody put this in here too. I love it. I can't wait. Being a board member is a paid position. They get paid. Do you remember that commercial, the Trident Layers commercial? And it was like the babysitter and she got paid in Trident gum.
No, but I could really go for that.
Oh my God. Okay, so I just really feel like being a board member is getting paid in Trident Layers. Like it's,
you don't even get Trident Layers.
You don't even get a high five.
I'm waiting for my truckload of Trident here.
This is not a sales on Trident, by the way.
Being a board member I don't think I've ever seen it.
Well, I have.
Maybe
I have.
one association I've managed in my career.
Yeah, I was gonna say it is a unicorn by far, but there are a few that exist that can compensate the board, but I'm going to go with 99.5% of the community associations. And I did a terrible job of introducing this. Community association, oh my God, we're like 5 slides in. Community associations are property owners associations, condominium associations, and homeowners associations. Could either be master planned, could be sub associations. There's couple of different nomenclatures, but when we talk about community associations, we're talking about all of you in conjunction, all of you in its totality. So sorry for it just taking this time for me to explain that. I'm thinking that you are all so advanced that you're just like right in line with what it is that we're talking about.
We're just so excited to get into this.
Honestly, this is probably my most favorite class that we've put together, and it shows that you're all very excited about this course equally, because this is by far the highest attendance we've had, which I love. So, okay.
But I want to go back real quick.
Being a board member is not a paid position.
Being a board member is almost always expressly not a compensated position. Not only is it not paid, it is not compensated. You don't get a discount on your dues. You don't get a good parking spot. You don't get to reserve your pool chair.
There are a couple of boards out there that you get their
parking spot reserved?
No, they if they serve on the board, they're
comp their dues.
They do. We no longer manage this community, but I definitely can think of one. And again, not the norm, you guys, not at all. And furthermore, in that particular association, because some people know that is the case, that they can become stated as board members, there is a constant coup that happens in that community all the time, because
it complicates things so
much.
What if you only serve for part of a year? Do you get prorated?
Again, thank goodness that's not for us to have to worry about in tonight's evening. That's definitely one for an attorney. But just, I mean, as with every consequence, there's a good consequence and a bad consequence. It just depends on the situation and the way that your community's set up.
I can see where having it as a paid position might entice more owners.
Volunteerism is a good
to participate.
It's a good thought, but the actual application of it, I don't know.
It creates a lot of, opportunity for a lot of corruption.
There's already misconception in just being a board member not being paid. Then throw being paid on top of it, and it's lights out after that.
You're never going to have a good situation with a homeowner if you're a board member that's being paid.
What are they
going to lose? That's their trump card.
Right? How could it not be?
Right.
Obviously, This is just us having the conversation, but To each their own. And those of you that are thriving in that environment,
the question
tip my
I have
hat
for
to you.
when the only time I've ever seen it is that the board members didn't actually get a monetary compensation, but they did get a credit towards their dues. I've never actually seen them get a check stroked to them.
So I've never actually seen a check get stricken to them because it is the assessments are the money of the association's funding. And so therefore they get that in offset of their assessments, which
that's what I thought too. I just want
it's a great benefit if it really actually was received that way. But again, that's not been my experience.
It's a volunteer position, or sometimes it's a voluntold position.
Voluntold, it happens more often than you think.
And you got to show up to those meetings so you can not accept the nomination if you really don't want to serve.
Yeah,
I'm just
all
kidding.
Right. So boards have unlimited authority. They can do anything. They are the government, which to some degree
they come with a badge.
Wait until we get to the misconceptions about property management. I should have put in there that we are law enforcement.
That's a conversation for a different slide.
Because we are not.
Because I have so much to say about that. But unfortunately, as a board member, I'm going to say, as a board member, unfortunately, board members do not have unlimited authority. As a homeowner, I'm going to say, oh, thank you. All powers that be, that board members do not have unlimited authority. One, board members are a collective body. Your board
100% all or none.
Body.
All or none.
Every vote equals the same. The president doesn't have executive privileges.
Totalitarian Tammy can't take up those flowers if she doesn't like the color.
Yeah, unless the other board members let her. And then we may have a lawsuit on our hands.
I was going to say that's a different story.
But so your board is actually a collective body. They have to vote and agree.
Yeah.
Or have like a consensus vote. Obviously, everybody doesn't have to be unanimous, but it's a collective body, and their power is limited by
the governing documents. It's really the SOP. Like that is the encyclopedia for the guidance and the governance of your community, and that's really what regulates everything. And so while it may seem or feel as if they have a lot of power, they do, because they are also equally put in that spot for having so much responsibility. Again, a thankless job with a lot of liability attached to it. I mean, I don't understand why you aren't all just jumping to be board members at this point in your life.
I'm going to say that I actually have really loved serving on my HOA board. So I'm going to get to that later on, but I just need to stand in defense of HOA boards.
Yeah, I love it. It's amazing.
For just a minute, because I have absolutely loved it, and I'll tell you more about that later.
I choose to serve on the modification or the architectural control board.
I would not want to do that.
I don't know why that is that we're so different in that, but
because I like to operate in secrecy, because that's what all boards do. I like to operate. Black is my color.
For me too, girl.
We meet in the dark of night, and we make all of the decisions, and we
there
never
are no meeting minutes.
And then we just send out violation notices and fines to people like it's rain.
Superfluously.
That's
right. For no reason. There's always a reason. And kind of one of the things that you should really know about being a board member, when we talk about common misconceptions, backing the train up to the basics, right? Uniformly, officers and board members. This is one we haven't gotten to yet, but officers and board members are elected by the membership. Okay, well, really board members are elected by the membership, because typically officers is done in a different fashion, meaning it's officers are elected and or appointed by those voted in board members, and it's so that they can all kind of equally leverage the roles and responsibilities, because just running the financial activity of the association is a lot, right?
The treasurer has a big job.
I mean, a huge job. I've always said this and stand behind it 100%. My favorite job on the board is the secretary.
It's probably the most important job.
And it's the most underrated, and it's the one that people fear the most.
It is probably the most work on the board.
Wow, why you gotta say it like that? She's not wrong, but here's the thing.
I speak the truth.
I know you do. It is. And it can be intimidating. I think actually a lot of the officer roles, in fact, all of the officer roles can be incredibly intimidating. And so it leads us down that line of, well, I'm just a board member.
I'm just a member at
I'm
large.
just a member at large. I don't have any responsibility. I don't really make any decisions. Well, do you vote? Do you cast a vote?
I just cast a vote.
Then you actually have been elected by the vast majority of your association to make the decisions on behalf of them. If we didn't need or want your input, we wouldn't have a board of directors. So kind of talking about the last couple of slides leading us up to where we are right now. On the next slide, we're going to kind of finish up with the remainder of the pretty big ones that come through.
I'm going to go back and
Yes,
just say
please.
very clearly I was being sarcastic. HOA boards do not operate in secrecy.
They don't.
It may
They do
feel that
not.
way.
They do not.
But the secretary has a big job to keep
Yes.
the minutes of the meetings of the board, and the meeting minutes reflect the decisions. That if they don't reflect anything else, they reflect the decisions and the votes that were taking place in that board meeting.
What most homeowners, and here's the big clarification to that misconception that she's talking about. If you have never served on a board, hint, hint, why this is so important so that you can see how the sausage is made, so to speak, is there is an opportunity for board members to have executive sessions or executive meetings to talk about very specific topics. And again, in previous classes, we've talked about this before. Board members can go into executive session to talk about legal matters, to talk about individual homeowners and possibly hearings or fines, or
the board is not feeding Karen her information.
Not trying to anyway.
Karen, who's Karen too much. Sorry, Karen.
Yeah, so from that standpoint, just want to kind of clarify for all of you that are participating that yes, they can operate, and those meeting minutes are not made available to the individual homeowners, but they are made available to future and current board members so they can see the conversations that we're having.
For executive session?
For executive session, right, versus open meeting session.
The other thing that's available to homeowners that's really telling about your association is your financials. So
listen, we can talk to y'all all day. As soon as we read the financials,
we can tell you where your money's going.
We can tell you whether or not you have a contentious community. We can actually tell a lot of information actually just by the financials. Okay, so boards can discriminate. Did you know that? I see it happen all the time. They are the most discriminating people on the planet. Honestly, I think this is, all joking aside, this is the part that actually makes being a board member really difficult, is that people really do have this misconception. And if anything, it's the exact opposite. We cannot selectively enforce. What we do for one, we must do for all. And if it feels, homeowner, like it's one versus the other, I also implore you to understand that what happens on one property, we're not going to talk to Billy Bob over here if that's not his property. If he wants to snitch on his neighbor or talk to us about the trampoline that he can see out of his kitchen window that's really disrupting his breakfast every morning, that may or may not be in violation. But I certainly am not going to have it be where the association is going to become involved in that tit for tat just because somebody thinks that the board is not doing their job or not catching things. This is where the board does appear to work in secrecy and also can appear to discriminate when that is the farthest from the truth.
It definitely happens that what appears to be the same decision for two different houses,
sure,
the same situation for two different houses end up in a different decision.
Sure.
But they're mitigating factors. Is your house on a corner lot? Can it be seen from more angles? Is your house tucked back in a cul-de-sac and literally you have this much street frontage?
Is it on a golf course buffer?
Do you have houses behind you?
Right.
Is it woods?
Right. Do you have stormwater management in your backyard?
What color is the brick of your house? Some paint colors work well with different brick colors and not with others.
Right.
So then also,
these are just lots of examples.
What color is your neighbor's house? And your association may not want all the houses on the street to be painted white.
That is true. Or to be every other color, something. Okay, so boards can avoid hosting annual meetings. That is literally the number one thing they cannot do.
They cannot avoid hosting an annual meeting. Now, an annual meeting may be late.
And it might not, okay,
It might
especially
not-
because I can hear the homeowners. We are supposed to have our annual meeting on the third Thursday of every single March. And that's the way that it's supposed to be. And this year we had it in October. And I want to know why I have a defunct board. Well, you don't.
Sometimes schedules just don't work.
There may have been unforeseen circumstances that, I mean, I could probably put a lot of different
There are a ton
plausible,
of things that come into play.
yeah, scenarios that could make that a reality. But as long as it's being hosted within a calendar year, okay,
or as
tell me.
possible, or as soon as possible.
There
I
you
was
go.
going to say that your annual meeting may not look like
What you
you
think.
expect it to look like.
Ah, you mean there's a misconception to annual meetings?
I mean, we've all learned that things can be hosted virtually, and so you don't have to leave your living room.
And
the best.
And truly, thanks to COVID, the one thing that we can say thank you to is the fact that the Georgia Nonprofit Corporation Code was changed to allow virtual meetings, or the operation to be conducted very similarly to this. So if your declaration is often silent and it refers to the Georgia Nonprofit Corporation Code, you have that capability to function like this.
Also, many declarations allow for meetings by mail.
Or ballot, yeah.
So, especially if you have no election,
Agreed.
you could definitely have your annual meeting, which your annual meeting consists of a financial report of the association.
That's it.
So
Don't be confused with an election, because sometimes it could just happen that it does happen during your annual meeting. But oftentimes, most elections, almost all elections, are actually held outside of the annual meeting in tandem with the annual meeting. So watch that misconception too.
And sometimes the voting is done by mail,
Yep.
and the financial report is
done in person. Or
But you could
virtually.
absolutely do a financial report by mail and not actually have a coming together of people
100%.
online or in a physical location.
Y'all just need to know where your equity is, how you're paying the bills, what's your financial status. This is the State of the Union, essentially, just like what our president gives us. That is the same thing that is required of the association. Where is your money going? How are we spending it? And what's our action plan for this year?
And many associations that literally is a street, they don't have any amenities,
Right.
or they have very few amenities,
I was just
very
about
few
to
common
say.
interests. You know,
Those are those non-sexy amenities that really aggravate the snot out of homeowners when you have to go at budget time and look at increases.
but that meeting could be an email.
Fastest annual meeting I've ever been to was held in 5 minutes. And it was the most efficient annual meeting ever.
That meeting could have been an email.
It was, but also in addition to that. All right, so boards can ignore homeowner feedback. That's not only do they get paid in Trident layers, they also ignore everything.
They don't care what the homeowners think.
Never. Why
I
would
don't.
they?
It's only because they're homeowners too, and
They're only in it for themselves. They're only in it for their individual lot and the glory that they get from being a board member.
some people in the homeowner defense, some people do really get kicks out of being the
And they're really
president.
good. And they're
They're
really
really-
good at their job, though.
They are
too.
really good at it, and that is really they really put their heart and soul into it. And some board
And
presidents,
then they become
are-
community managers.
some of board presidents are a little bit more laid back or spread thin. I'm just saying, some of us have a lot going on.
I was
But-
going to say that and other volunteer efforts
But we're homeowners, so board members.
have the same applicability that each of you is
And
as homeowners
so,
do.
while it may feel like they're not listening to their neighbors, because they're your neighbors in most instances, they may be limited in what they can do in response because of the governing documents or municipal codes, county codes. So boards don't necessarily ignore homeowner feedback, but they can't always act on it or act in the manner that the
And
homeowners want.
I'll even go a step further and tell y'all that I wish homeowners had more feedback for board members. Half the reason why things escalate out of control, in a community association is because there's lack of feedback from the homeowner engaging the request or the communication. that is being asked of them. So truly, it's never been my experience where a board has taken a piece of information and said, yeah, we're not listening to that.
Beyond that, a board can definitely be challenged by homeowners.
100% they can be.
They can be challenged by homeowners, and actually all documents I've ever seen do have provisions in the documents to oust your board.
What?
Our oust board.
3 meetings and you're out. If only it were that easy. I will say this. There are some really cunning, really good attorneys writing some bylaws right now. But most of the older archaic ones, they say, hey, you can be ousted if, but people also forget that they were elected by the membership. And so you can only really be ousted by the membership,
which is the homeowners. So if the homeowners really, really, really are not liking the direction of their
special meeting. I didn't say that. I didn't say that, but you call a special meeting.
There's provisions in your bylaws to remove an officer. To remove a director.
Director, not an officer.
That's gonna bring in officers and directors are not always the same thing.
Correct.
And we get this a lot with directors that are wanting to remove other elected directors from office.
Right.
They want to get them off of the board.
Right.
And so they read this provision that says that the directors can remove an officer by a vote of the majority with or without cause.
Correct. Of the board, not the association. Yeah, the board.
The directors can remove another director from office. They can remove them from their office.
To be a member at large. It does not remove their right to vote.
So an officer and a director are not necessarily the same person.
Correct. They can be sometimes.
You can have directors that serve as officers.
Yeah.
And you can have officers that are not directors, but they do serve a role in their community, like the treasurer may not always be the officer. A secretary may not always, a treasurer may not always be a director. A secretary may not always be a director.
Correct.
And you have other offices.
That one is so crazy to me. If I can just say that real fast, like a secretary can be an unelected official. Like, wait, what? I've seen it. It doesn't happen often.
Directors are not the most organized, okay? That's not the case in my situation.
And there's the thing. There are some crazy declarations and bylaws out there. And again, just for any of you newbies out there, association declaration regulates the association, the homeowners, the rights and responsibilities of both parties, and the bylaws regulate the board of directors' actions and their powers and their duties and their obligations. So just putting that out there as we've gone through all the board.
The bylaws also tell you who can serve on the board.
This is also correct.
A lot of times the homeowners and their spouses can serve on the board. Sometimes.
You mean to tell me that not only homeowners can serve on the board? Because you're like, woo, you're skipping all the way down there. So yeah, believe it or not, you don't always have to be a homeowner or live. Most of the time, friends, most of the time you need to live in your community
or own in your community.
You might not have to reside there permanently, but for the most part, it does require that only you or your spouse, only one person of your homeowner composition can serve on the board at a time. But what happens when you own multiple properties?
I guess you could each serve on the board. If you both own multiple properties, one could represent one household, one could represent the other. Sometimes you have to live in the community to serve. You have to live and own. Sometimes they let tenants serve on boards.
Yeah, it was just, that's a whole conversation coming at you, y'all.
I think that's a whole class.
I was gonna say that one's gonna get juicy.
That one. But tenants, in a lot of cases, actually can serve on the board. I've seen tenants being allowed to serve on the board more than I have seen uninvested parties, but I have seen it where greater community members or uninterested people, honestly, they don't own in the community, they don't live in the community, but they can serve on the board of a community. Now, talk about a thankless job, but
and if we didn't talk about it, boards can be challenged. 100% boards can be challenged. I think we talked about that one, but we kind of went all the way around. All right, so now we're going to skip to my favorite part. On the next slide, we're going to start talking about the common misconceptions. Now, you guys have submitted some really good ones that we're going to talk about here at the end, but these, I had some fun with these ones. All right, so common misconceptions about working with professional management. all service contracts are created equally. This kind of goes back to all community associations are created the same or are the same. And I am here to tell you, friends, that is just not the case. Most people, and you and I talk about this all the time, especially on the disposition of how we can communicate more effectively to people and how can we get across certain thought processes. But most homeowners, to include board members, believe that professional management services encompasses the full service experience. And for full service, I mean all the bells and whistles. We do your accounting, your administration, the non-compliance inspections, the drive-throughs of the community, the vendor management, the bid procurement, the homeowner interactions of Q&A, and the modification management and amenities management. And holy smokes, then we're talking about access control, and what about my package deliveries and all of those different things, right? A lot of people believe that full service is the only service experience that you can have with professional management, and that's just not the case. First off, remember when we were talking about those unsexy amenities and those associations that own their streets, but there's 150 of them in there, and they're like, why do I even pay assessments towards the street? Well, it's an independent drive that gets you to your home, which is what you're paying for. But more importantly, you might not need full service. And a large part of my job as an expert in this area is to determine what possibly best fits your service needs for your community. And of course, we take into consideration lots of things, volunteerism efforts and so forth. But for an association that has minimal vendor management, you might not always need full service. So just keep that in mind. We have accounting only services, and by we, I mean professional management companies. There are a lot of competitor managers to our company as well that have a selective services or a financial only contract that they share with their partners too, for the more budget conscious, the more fiduciary friendly, or those board members that really like to have a heavy hand on the operations.
Or the neighborhoods that really, they don't have an issue with collection. They don't have an issue with compliance. They literally need somebody to send out invoices, collect the dues,
send out those
pay the
closing
bills,
statements,
and take the responsibility for the closing letters.
Yep.
One of the things that we haven't talked about, and I don't know that this is the forum for it, but the association management takes the liability off of the board.
Huge, 100%
for record keeping and closing letters is a huge one, actually.
That's really by far one of the biggest ones. And I had a conversation with somebody earlier today that like made my mouth open when they were telling me an example of somebody not adding the appropriate balance forward, and the association missed out on collecting something because it wasn't listed on their closing letter. Owie, self-managed boards, be mindful. Okay, so this is the next one. Management, as soon as, this is my favorite. Okay, Melissa, we're going to sign with you. We love everything that you're saying. This looks so good.
We cannot wait.
You get introduced to the community and you're like, Bueller. Hey, board, you have to respond now.
But that's what we hired you for.
I thought management company is the board now.
They get to make y'all can decide that. Y'all decided what can go in my
It was the management company that did this, 100%. Actually, sorry to disappoint all of you, but a good management company does not make any decisions for the association.
We might make recommendations.
That we are your best business advisor. Yes, we are licensed agents, as you talked about. I didn't even talk about this, but we're actually licensed by the Georgia Real Estate Commission as well. The state of Georgia actually requires that additional licensure, not just the CAI designations or some of the other things that we talked about, but we are here. My license, her license is held by GREC. Now, what's interesting about your license is you don't have any fun letters after your name.
Letters.
So it's hard for people to tell that you're licensed because she's a salesperson. Getting ready to get your brokerage, right? Yay!
We'll see.
Yay! Anyway, So, no, we do not replace your board of directors.
It doesn't matter how many letters you have behind your name. You still can't make decisions for the
I know.
The board does that. The board makes the decisions. Yeah. They may set policies in place so that you don't have to reach out to them every time there's
for every action. We call those resolutions.
But, or policies. You may have a fee, a fine
waiver, difference. A fee waiver policy. Difference. All right. So, okay. I'm getting semantics, my favorite. But you're right.
Association managers do not get to make the decisions. The policies of the management company do not dictate the policies of the association. They may affect how the policies are enacted,
or what the roles and responsibilities that your community manager applies to your association. Because remember, just like that first one, if you're not a full service, and you have this really high expectation that your manager should be getting those, bids for a new landscaping company, and you're really dismayed that that's not happening. It's a very difficult conversation for us to have with you. I had
that conversation with my association manager when I read my contract for my association.
Stop! Don't act like you read stuff. I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. Next slide. Just kidding. We know that you do. And no, yes,
I read the contract because I thought it included something that it didn't. Right. And when I read the contract.
And just so that all of you know, just for discernment, the management agreement actually regulates the responsibilities of your agent. So if you're at all curious about what does my manager do for me? First, take a look at your contract. Second, talk to them and make sure that you're on the same page with them.
Make sure you talk to your board. If you're a homeowner, make sure you talk to the board and have that conversation about what we should expect from our association manager.
100%.
You can have that conversation with your association manager too.
Yes, you can. I really don't see a lot of phone calls. Hey Mel, how you doing today? Just wanted to double check. Is the board running okay?
I just wanted to have some coffee with you and see how things were going.
Now, if I were on site, that'd be a totally different story because that happens all the time. It does. I love my on-site people. Okay. Anyway,
we're running out of time.
I know we have to go so fast. I know. I got to get going through this. All right. So we have like 2 more slides left.
Let's skip down to the professional management and accessibility. Because
okay, we don't take minutes. We're a third-party vendor. Let's just cut to the chase. We don't take minutes. That is your secretary's responsibility.
We don't get to decide what's important enough.
If you need that information, if you need education or assistance or a freebie on how to take meeting minutes, just reach out to us after this class. I've got you covered. Don't you stress about any of that. All right, professional management offers limited accessibility. Listen, Amarie, I have called you 8 times. 8 times in the last 3 hours, and I've not received a call back. This is unacceptable.
I know. I can't sit by my phone all day and wait for the phone to ring.
Also, if you don't leave a callback number.
Or tell me what association you're in so I can look it up.
Or an address. Or a contact where we can reach back out to you for more details. That super helpful. If you are trying to reach out to us and you are not experiencing, for any management company, if you are not experiencing phone call, email, and most always a management company has a portal. And I know this is an ugly topic to talk about because we're getting a little bit more technologically savvy with some of the service offerings that a lot of management companies can do, but it is for your own good. It's for the betterment of the community. We're able to streamline processes online. So
we're making our managers more efficient and giving them a better work-life balance, which makes them happier when they talk.
And it makes them answer the phone faster when you call. See how that works?
But also, if you really want to have a conversation, send an email or a message and ask for a time to have a conversation. So scheduling calls makes it a lot easier for your manager to have that dedicated time to talk to you.
And they're prepared. They're not caught off guard. They don't have to come back and say, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. Because what did we talk about earlier? Immediate contact and communication does not mean immediate resolution. And those 2 things have to be separated, friends, in order for your board to be successful, in order for your partnership with a management company to be successful. Be mindful that sometimes we're going to have to do research. Next slide, please.
There's an interesting comment that I want to bring up.
Yeah.
That on-call maintenance is not condo associations don't necessarily provide on-call maintenance for work orders or in-unit work orders.
Okay.
Well, first off, and something about it being free. It's not for anything in your association. Nothing in your association
Nothing is free.
The only income that your association has
Is yours.
Is dues, your HOA dues. That's almost always the only income an association has. Occasionally, there's a little bit of supplement.
Or if you do movie films, or
that is actually.
Or I was gonna say, or if you sublease like the space on your roof to
a cell tower.
Yeah.
But that income is taxable. But
yes, ma'am, it is.
That's another an HOA tax conversation. But
another conversation.
Anything that you have, any services provided by your association, you're paying for one way or the other.
100%.
So if your association does offer on-call maintenance, first off, on-call maintenance is, I'm assuming that's emergency on-call.
I'm assuming that's in unit.
And in unit, I mean, that's
fire, flood, or blood.
That's what I say. Like
fire, flood, or blood is considered a deemable emergency. And regardless of the contract scope, friends, if you're partnered with professional management, this is also a dirty little secret too that we need to make sure gets aired out there. We are equally responsible to help you remediate it. It doesn't mean that we are going to be the one to call the vendor or to meet the vendor at 4 a.m. But it definitely means that if there is water gushing or something is on fire, has somebody called the fire department. Okay, these are the steps in which, so just making sure that those match right there is important.
Also, just buy a plunger. When you buy buy a plunger. Like that is probably
YouTube, friends.
From
YouTube, the Google.
From on-site days, like a plunger can solve a lot of your problems. Backed up sink, backed up toilet overflowing. Like buy a plunger. True. And that is going to go to our last slide that I think we're going to have time for. But what's better, to rent a home or own a home?
Y'all, this is
because when you own the home, all that maintenance and definitely all the plunging.
Okay.
Probably when you're renting, the plunging's going to come down to you.
So I feel like this is going to be Twilight. Like your team Edward, and I'm team Jacob.
This is going to get heated then.
I really feel like
which team am I on? Am I
your team Edward? Edward wins.
But does Edward rent or does Edward own?
Edward owns. I rent.
Edward
in real life. In real life. I know. I'm just kidding. Okay, truthfully, I was team Jacob the entire time, but that's for a different conversation. But truly, I do rent. I've talked about this before. I'm a great rentant. I'm a great resident and tenant. I have read my governing documents, and in the space in which I have also owned a home before, friends. Okay, so I know the balance of home ownership. And I live in a condominium. It's its own standalone condominium, so I have no upstairs or downstairs neighbors. But I don't have to worry about my landscaping. I don't have to worry about them putting pine straw. The association takes care of all of that for me. But I just give them my money, and they make my community look really nice. And then the relationship that I have with my landlord is perfect.
I was about to say,
we communicate.
When your air conditioning goes out, right? Like that's not on you. That's on your landlord versus.
So there's been,
as soon as you buy a home, there's a project.
So obviously,
and every day thereafter.
And we're not trying to be trite about this in any way, shape, or form, but I do think that this is a very good conversation that is worth discussion because it is a huge common misconception. Yes.
And that all tenants are not necessarily negative.
That was it. Most of our experience and most of the circumstances that we deal with, and trust me, friends, we've been to court with you. We know your pain. We know how difficult a lot of this is. But for the most part, there are also really good people that genuinely are just in a different spot in their life where maybe this is a temporary circumstance like it is for me. It's much more feasible for me to have more movement where I am right now because of the circumstances that are happening in my personal life. And so it makes itself more advantageous for me. So
and let's be real.
There's just some thought.
There are some really obnoxious
they're terrible friends.
And I'm going to say lazy.
Yikes.
I'm going to go with homeowners.
Oh,
there are some homeowners that just do not maintain their home.
Why are you putting these people on blast like that?
Because it's the reality. You've got great tenants.
It doesn't matter if you own or you rent, guys.
Have really complacent homeowners. There's a good word. They're just complacent.
They are.
They don't care if their shutter is
and that
falling
really
off.
wraps into the first one that you see right here. I hear this all the time. Board members get so frustrated that they're like, I just don't understand why people don't know how to trim their hedges, or why they don't do this, or why they don't see this. You know what? Sometimes we have to stop.
There's a right and a wrong way to trim hedges.
Yeah, crepe murder, duh. Okay, so.
Well, we're making our point right here.
I know we are. All I'm saying in this is that people sometimes need to be told what those solutions look like. You can be the most brilliant person, but if you're an engineer in your daily world and you come home from work and you get this violation letter for some artistic something, your brain might not shift to that. And I'm just using that as a terrible example.
All
but
aesthetics are not the same.
And that is exactly correct. So
and there's
just
more
keep
than
that in
one way
mind.
to skin a cat. So what your resolution to a problem is not necessarily Joe's resolution to the problem.
This is very true. This is very true.
You may be thinking, take the fence down. And Joe's like, I'm going to paint the fence a different color.
Well, Joe and I are going to have words then. So that's all I'm going to say. And can I just also say thank you, Internet. Thank you to all those people that take videos. Yes, that toss the leaves into each other's. Like, have you guys ever seen, there are actual homeowner videos where like you can actually watch people be so petty with throwing debris back and forth over a fence because, oh, your tree dropped its leaves on my property and now it's causing me emotional stress.
Oh, so I have something to say to that, but
okay.
You know, your tree ends at my property line.
Well, as I say, also another class and a topic for another time. But see, we've had some fun debunking some of these ones. Now we're going to go to the beloved audience, and you guys have been so awesome with giving your versions. Common misconception: monthly association assessments do not go towards paying board members for their service, which we talked about. So agree with you.
More people would do it if they did.
Yeah, and here's another
there would be
same vein, common misconception: board members get fine waivers or other perks or get a free pass not to comply with the CCNRs. There are no free passes in life for anything. And if you have a free pass on something, share in our feedback. Thanks, Josh, for moving those slides forward. There was an awesome quote in there that I can't remember off the top of my head, but thank you. This is totally meant to, obviously, we talk about these misconceptions from a foundation of, we want you to be knowledgeable. We want you to do the right thing. We want you to know how to answer questions. And if you don't know the answers, don't make it up. Just like what we tell our managers, don't make it up. Come and seek out a professional. That doesn't mean that you have to be in a management agreement with them. It's just like, we are not attorneys, so I should not making this distinction, but it's kind of like being able to seek out an attorney opinion to advise you doesn't necessarily mean you have to be on retainer with them. It's a very similar mindset. So don't feel bad for reaching out to us if you just need a little bit of guidance, especially for my self-managed friends. You guys are doing a lot of this on your own time with your own resources, and that's, so huge. All right. Should amendment requests be submitted to the community association manager who manages, coordinates getting the votes for the amendment changes from the homeowners? Yes.
That's
if you're partnered with professional management.
That's going to be dependent on your association and how your board is managing that amendment request. Sometimes depending on your contract scope, your board may be actually managing the vote and the ballot keeping. Sometimes
we create the letter and mail it out, but the board might also be the one that does the collection and the attendance at the meeting.
And it's
the attorney
for sure. Company is and the scope of your contract. So that's going to kind of be specific to each association.
So the board can go a whole term without having meetings with the community until it's the annual meeting. Yes, technically. So there's a couple of things. That doesn't mean that that's what they should do, for one. But number two is the bylaws, like we talked about. The bylaws regulate the meeting frequency of the board of directors as well as the membership in totality. And so typically you have to host that annual board meeting
The
Yeah.
annual association meeting.
Yes, that one. That's the one that I meant.
Most of the time, your bylaws are going to dictate that your board meet more frequently than that annual meeting, and
Or at a frequency as determined by the board, right? That's typically the language that we can see from time to time.
And some boards don't meet. Some board, they have no reason to meet. There's not a lot to discuss.
True.
And so anything that needs to be voted on is done via email or, well,
because board members do have, oftentimes there's a provision in the bylaws, action outside of a meeting.
Yeah.
So board just has to do it unanimously instead of majority vote, largely when that happens.
And most of the time for small associations that don't have much business, they might do it outside of a meeting. Minutes or records of those votes should be available, and most boards I would say meet on a quarterly basis, maybe a very small.
They should try to at least do it that way. I'll also say this: if you do not have quorum at an annual meeting, do not expect meeting minutes. If there was no quorum and no action was taken, there is no record of said no action taken.
If there is no quorum, then no action can be taken.
Right, what I said. And we still see homeowner associations or condo associations actually create meeting minutes that just reflect that. Love that if that's what you want to do. But just so you know, if you are that new homeowner and you're like, we have no meeting minutes, so the board is defunct, not necessarily. If they are meeting only on an annual basis and you guys haven't had quorum in 85 years, you're probably not going to see any meeting minutes, which is unfortunate.
And also, you should get your neighbors and y'all should go to the annual meeting. Like if you're mad that there are no meeting minutes, go to the meeting.
Typically those people do. And those people actually make really good volunteers. Okay, so what would be some of the advantages of hiring a management company for a community versus managing within the volunteers? My friend, we have a whole class on the benefits of professional management.
And
the biggest thing is liability.
Liability and record keeping. It depends on your
financial collection assessment.
100% it depends on your association.
Yeah.
Because there are a lot of benefits to having kind of a mediary between your neighbors and collections.
We actually have an awesome association. Love them. But they were court ordered to have a management company. And so that's largely one of the reasons why
it's becoming more of a thing too.
It's all joking aside,
just society, right?
I was gonna say, all joking aside, we are seeing a lot more of that happen, unfortunately, and a lot more receivership because of that lack of interest happening within the community.
So if you're unhappy, this is the next question. If you're unhappy with your association manager, we like to see a partnership between the board and the manager. Sometimes it's not a good fit. We get it. Sometimes
and boards change. What could have been a really good fit?
Things in your manager's life may change too.
You mean I'm not allowed to go off, get married, have a child, and then decide to take some time off?
You're supposed to sit here at your desk and wait for me to call you.
That's how I feel. And what I would want to do. And I'm just.
But also, some of us get salty.
Very.
We get salty as we get dog poop pictures in our email. And so it's not always a good fit. Within Heritage, I can only speak for the association management company for which I work at the time. But within Heritage, we have a team of support for the managers. If you're having an issue with your association manager, reach out to their director and let's start that conversation. It might be that we have a communication issue or just a misunderstanding that we can work out with the help of your director.
Yep.
It might be that you need a different manager. And so those are things that your director and the support staff that the manager has can help.
And also, if any of those terms and those words sound like gibberish to you and you're hearing them for the first time, also feedback us after this class so that we can get you taken care of. Woohoo! Yeah.
14 salty.
What is a director?
What does it mean to be salty?
We can show you. Okay. I have told my board members they need to lead by example. Yes. They do. They do. I don't know whoever you are, but you should also consider serving because it sounds like you would be a good option.
I agree with you.
All right. What's the best way to vet handyman? That you want to use for the community? So, that's a very good question. first and foremost, the most important things are, remember this, my friends, it is probably not the less expensive route, but it is the legal route. You want to do business with licensed and insured vendors. You are residential homes comprising a commercial business. So commercial business does business with other commercial businesses. So when you're looking for a handyman, keep that in consideration. To that fold, I don't know if you're in a condo or if you're in a single family home situation, but most of the time, handymen or construction companies that have commercial entities or commercial divisions may have a separate and different residential division that would help out with in-home versus the association. So if I could say anything about that, licensed and insured, even if it's one person.
Make sure
even if
they're
it's one person.
adequately insured.
Yeah.
You want to make sure you get that W-9.
Especially for the subcontractors. That's really what make sure that they have coverage
And
in case they.
This doesn't specify the community. It doesn't say a condo though, but definitely check your documents if you're in a condo or you have shared structures, because they may actually dictate who you can use, the insurance coverage of the vendors that you're choosing, and your association may actually have specific ones. But if your association is looking for new vendors, make sure they're insured. Talk to them.
Do an engage, and it's difficult, especially because maintenance can be just as important as landscaping. I was just about to say, then you're also talking about, okay, you need to have a scope of service. This is an interesting thing too. Handyman, okay, well, what are they there to do? The contract should stipulate exactly what their actions are. And oftentimes what associations do is they just contract an individual. And then they're like, okay, just be here 3 days a week. To do what? There still needs to be guidance. So just like the management contract is the contract that regulates the manager's actions, and the governing documents and the bylaws regulate the association homeowners and the board member actions, the contract that you have with any of your third-party vendors should also do that same thing.
I will say that handymen are really hard to find because
100%.
As speaking for my association, the jobs that we have for a handyman to do are really small jobs. It's really hard to get people out to do those really small jobs.
I just really,
what I would think is a reasonable price.
I was just about to say, we're looking at two things: price and then the scope of what the request is. So like maybe you have that beautiful clubhouse that has 15-foot ceilings and you don't have a 15-foot ladder, or exactly. That is a real issue, but sometimes associations have to let those work orders kind of build up, because you oftentimes get charged a trip charge to come out to the property. And then you want to give them a robust list so that they can tackle as many things as possible. But the other thing that you also need to understand, and we're totally getting into the weeds on this one, but I feel like this was a valid question. Also want to make sure that what that person is doing, not just with the work that is being performed, but that you're also making sure that if I'm replacing 3 out of the 4 light bulbs that are right there, good Lord, please do. Please do. Because there could be that opportunity where you're just going to be calling that guy out or person back out the next week.
Make sure it's the same color light. That's my sidebar, but that drives me nuts. So go ahead and replace all of them so you're sure.
So listen.
It's going to save you money.
So I hope you've had as much fun with us as we've had with you. You were, we went through all of the fun questions. Oh, thanks, Lawrence, for letting us know you were a condo. See, I was right. I could tell by the nature of your request. You said handyman, which also kind of alluded to what that was. But friends, we're at the end of our journey. And for most of you, you stayed a whole extra 20 minutes longer. And
We've
for that,
so much
thank
fun.
you.
Can we do this again?
I don't know if they're going to allow us to come back.
I don't know that they can on again, but I've had fun. We could do a round 2.
We can do. There's so much of this that we could have delved into, a lot more. We just want to give you the basics and make sure that you understand you're awesome.
Thank you so much for hanging in with us for an hour and a half.
Thank you. And for those on replay that are watching this too, this is awesome. And we appreciate you taking time to take a look at our content and our educational value. Again, it doesn't matter if you're a partner with us or not. It's really important that you have access to information and that you can do your job in the best ability possible. So
associations are an ever evolving animal. So,
and you can hate to love us or love to hate us, either one.
or you can just love us.
I mean, either way, we really appreciate you, and we're very grateful that you've taken time out of your day to spend some time with us and let us have some fun conversation. So, for those of you that have registered and are watching this live, you will get a full recording of this in the upcoming days, and I might even be inclined to offer some really awesome benefits like those sample meeting minutes that I was talking about. I just might be inclined to do that, but for those of you that are on replay, we also have an awesome YouTube channel. So if you liked this course and you liked her content,
And the YouTube
you can
channel,
come back and take a look at some other really, really great community association specific content for you. What
And
about our YouTube channel?
It's safe for kids.
It is. It is. Oh my gosh, I never even thought that it wouldn't be. But yes, as she says, it's safe for kids. So thank you so much, and we'll see you again in the audience soon.
Have a good night.